That night, the red candles burned out. The bride sat alone. When the morning light broke, her husband finally returned behind him, followed a concubine with disheveled clothes. Everyone thought that this daughter of a general's family would swallow her anger and hold her tongue, enduring it for her entire life for the sake of the family's face. Little did they know, the real storm was just beginning. She faintly said 4 words, "Then grant death." Within 3 days, the century-old marquise's mansion came crashing down. Please make sure you are in a comfortable position. Our main story is about to begin. Reply in the comments and let us know which city you are all reading our story from. I sat alone in the new house until daybreak. Phoenix coronet and rosy cape. The dragon and phoenix wedding candles burned to ashes. My husband, Marquise Jenin, Xiao Jinyan, has finally come. And behind him followed a woman with a messy bun and disheveled clothes. She is the niece of the managing mammy in the manor, named Chun Tao. She knelt down with an apologetic look on her face. "Madam, please forgive me. This servant was made drunk last night and rested in the west courtyard. The candlelight was dim. The marquis mistook this servant for you, madam." Yao Guang, Xiao Jinyan looked at me, his eyes shifting. I just made a muddle-headed mistake that any man would make after getting drunk. As soon as the voice fell, Chun Tao fell to her knees with a thud, sobbing uncontrollably. "This servant's crime deserves 10,000 deaths. It has nothing to do with the marquise. Now that I have sullied the marquise's and madam's wedding night, whether I am sold off or drowned in a pond, this servant will have absolutely no complaints. I only beg you, madam, to please not blame the marquis." While crying, she secretly snuck a peek at Xiao Jinyan from the corner of her eye. What a great show of deep affection between master and servant. I was wearing a bright red wedding dress, looking down from on high at her kneeling on the ground, and then looked at my good husband beside her with a face full of guilt. Then I spoke lightly, my voice clearly spreading throughout the entire room. "In that case, then let it be drowning in the pond." My voice wasn't loud yet, like an ice pick. It stabbed fiercely into the ears of everyone in the wedding hall. The air solidified. The crying of Chun Tao, who was kneeling on the ground, came to an abrupt halt, and that tear-streaked face of hers instantly turned deathly pale, her eyes widening in disbelief. The guilt on Xiao Jinyan's face also froze, replaced by shock and panic. "Yao Guang, what are you saying?" I sat upright on the wedding bed. My gaze calmly swept past him, finally landing back on Chun Tao. Chun Tao said it herself, to be sold off or drowned in the pond, with absolutely no complaints. As the madam of the marquise's residence, I must naturally fulfill a servant's loyalty and righteousness. "Summonon come." The 2 dowry nannies guarding the door immediately walked in. They are old-timers from my father, the Genbei general's manor, and only listen to my commands. "Madam, do as I say, gag them, and take them to the backyard lotus pond to be drowned." My tone didn't waver in the slightest, as if I were saying the weather's nice today. Chun Tao finally realized I wasn't acting. I was for real. She screamed in terror, scrambled and crawled to Xiao Jinyan's feet, and clung tightly to his leg. Lord Marquis, save me. This servant didn't mean it. This servant is sincerely admitting my mistake. My lady, spare my life." Xiao Jinyan's expression changed completely. He looked at me urgently, his tone carrying a hint of command. "Yao Guang, stop making a scene, Chun Tao. After all, she has served in the residence for many years. Her crime doesn't deserve death." I raised an eyebrow. Does the Lord Marquis think I am making a scene? I stood up, and the phoenix coronet and wedding robes made delicate sounds with my movement, crisp and ironic. "Lord Marquis, on our wedding night, you were in the west courtyard screwing your concubine, leaving me to an empty bridal chamber alone. After daybreak, you brought people to me to put on a show about making a drunken mistake. Now I've granted her wish to die, and you say I am just messing around." My gaze moved back and forth between him and Chun Tao, the corners of my lips curling into a cold arc. "So what is the truth? Really? Was it that you, Lord Marquis, made a drunken mistake, or were the 2 of you just unable to control your feelings?" This question was like a sharp sword unsheathed, aimed straight at the core. Xiao Jinyan's breath caught, his eyes darting away, as he actually dared not meet my gaze. He was exposed. That momentary panic had completely betrayed him. Chuntao was even more terrified, trembling all over. She never expected that I wouldn't play by the rules at all. Yao Guang. I really did drink too much. He was still being stubborn, Chuntao. She was just momentarily confused. Why must you be so aggressive? Aggressive. I laughed. Fine. Since the Marquise thinks I am aggressive, then I might as well not be the mistress of this marquisate. As soon as these words came out, everyone in the hall was shocked. Xiao Jinyan abruptly looked up, his eyes filled with disbelief. Lin Yaoguang. Do you know what you are saying? A divorce? Just for this little thing? You want a divorce? I looked at him coldly. A small matter, Marquise Genin. This marriage was personally bestowed by His Majesty. I am the legitimate daughter of General Genbei's Lin family. On the night of our grand wedding, you treated the Emperor's grace as nothing. Fooled around with a concubine in your residence, trampling the face of my Lin family and the face of the imperial family under your feet. In your eyes, this is a small matter. My voice wasn't loud, but every word carried immense weight, hammering Xiao Jinyan until his face turned pale and then ashen. He probably never imagined that I would be so fiery and unyielding. In his imagination, I, Lin Yaoguang, the future wife of the Marquis of Genin, would surely swallow my broken teeth and blood for the family's glory, at most targeting Chun Dao in private, and then maintain a superficial marital harmony with him. He was wrong. The people of my Lin family never engage in infighting. Summonong come. I no longer looked at him, and directly ordered my dowry mama. Take my name card back to the general's manor. Ask my eldest brother to bring the manor's guards and come immediately. Just say that the Genin Marquis Manor's family conduct is corrupt and utterly chaotic. That I, Lin Yaoguang, want an immediate divorce, and ask him to come take me home. Also, bring out the list of the dowry I brought, and check it clearly for me, item by item. If even the slightest amount is missing, I will demand a clear explanation. Yes, young miss. The matrons acknowledged the order, a golden glint in their eyes, and turned to leave. Xiao Jinyan completely panicked. The development of events was completely beyond his control. What he thought was an inner court dispute was escalating at a speed he couldn't imagine into a storm between the two families. And even in the imperial court. Stop, he roared, trying to stop the matrons. Swoosh, another matron by my side stepped forward, blocking him, her gaze sharp. Lord Marquis, please have some self-respect. Xiao Jinyan looked at this imposing old woman before him, then at my ice-cold face, and was momentarily intimidated. He had never witnessed such a showdown. Shouldn't wars between women be about crying and jealous spats? How come when it came to me, it became a reckoning and a clean break? Chuntao collapsed on the ground, already scared stupid. She had originally thought that by relying on the Lord Marquise's favor, as long as she acted out a self-pity ploy, she could make this new madam suffer a loss she couldn't complain about. And in the future she would be able to ascend to heaven in a single step. But she never in a million years expected that this new madam didn't even deign to fight with her. What she wanted was to flip the table directly. Lin Yaoguang, do you have to make such a big scene? Xiao Jinyan said, exasperated and infuriated. What good does this do for you and me? For the Lin family and the Marquise's mansion? Benefits? I let out a light laugh. Not having to spend the rest of my life in the same room with a hypocritical man and a shameless concubine is the greatest benefit of all. As for the Lin family and the Marquise's residence, I paused, and told him, word by word, the honor of my Lin family wasn't earned by swallowing insults and holding back. It was forged by my father and older brother on the battlefield. One slash and one thrust at a time. Your Marquise of Genin's residence dares to talk about honor with my Lin family. The actions of the general's residence were unimaginably fast. In less than an hour, the neat and uniform sound of horse hooves and scraping armor came from outside the Marquise's residence. Me, Big Brother, the current deputy commander of the Imperial Guard, Lin Yuanfeng, dressed in full military attire, burst in directly, leading 2 squads of personal guards from the general's manor. Big Brother. Seeing him, my constantly tense nerves finally relaxed a little. Lin Yuanfeng strode swiftly to me, glanced at my still relatively neat wedding dress, then swept his gaze over the disheveled Chun Tao on the ground, and the ashen-faced Xiao Jinyan, a monstrous rage instantly igniting in his eyes. What a fine Marquis of Genin! He didn't even look at Xiao Jinyan, just said to me coldly, "Yao Guang, don't be afraid. Big brother is here to take you home." Xiao Jinyan's face was already as black as the bottom of a pot. The personal guards of the general's manor had all been on the battlefield and seen blood. At this moment, they stood solemnly in the courtyard, their murderous aura soaring to the heavens. The servants and household guards of the Marquise's manor were so scared they didn't dare to breathe. This was no longer a family matter. This was blatant military suppression. "Commander Lin, what is the meaning of this?" Xiao Jinyan questioned, struggling to save face. "Barging into my Marquise's manor with troops. Are you planning to rebel?" Lin Yuanfeng looked as if he had heard the biggest joke in the world. He slowly turned, his eagle eyes staring directly at Xiao Jinyan, his presence overwhelming. "Rebel, Marquis Xiao? You think far too highly of yourself. I, Lin Yuanfeng, am here today on the orders of my father, the general who pacifies the north, to retrieve the daughter of our Lin family. As for bringing soldiers..." He looked around, his voice ice cold. "My sister's dowry consists of a full 130 loads, all of which are imperial gifts and palace treasures. Now that it is to be returned completely intact, we'll naturally need people to take inventory and guard it, lest some petty thieves take the opportunity to pilfer and tarnish the good name of my Lin family." Every single word was a slap in Xiao Jinyan's face, saying that his Marquise's residence had sticky fingers and couldn't even manage its servants properly. Me attending Mammy had long since taken the dowry list and begun to announce loudly. A pair of East Sea pearls bestowed by His Majesty intact. A Hotan warm jade Ruyi scepter bestowed by Her Majesty the Empress intact. Dowry from the General's manor. 4 landscape paintings by a great master of the previous dynasty intact. Each announcement was like a resounding slap, fiercely landing on the face of the Genin Marquis manor. The surrounding servants whispered among themselves, their gazes toward Xiao Jinyan and Chun Tao filled with contempt and gloating. On the wedding night, the groom was fooling around with a servant concubine, forcing the legitimate daughter of the general's manor to divorce him on the spot. And he even sent soldiers to her door to take inventory of the dowry. This scandal, I am afraid, will spread throughout the entire capital city within the day. The century-old pristine reputation of the Marquis of Genin's manor is pretty much completely ruined today. Xiao Jinyan's body was trembling slightly, from anger, and also from fear. He wanted to stop it, but was powerless. The personal soldiers Lin Yuanfeng brought had the entire courtyard surrounded, making it impenetrable, and his men couldn't interfere at all. Chun Dao had long fainted from the fright of the spectacle, and was dragged to one side by 2 coarse old serving women like a dead dog. I watched all of this coldly, my heart completely unstirred. This is just the beginning, Xiao Jinyan. You think this is just a loss of face. What I want is for you and the family behind you to never be able to rise again. The dowry has been counted, not a single piece is missing. Lin Yuanfeng walked to my side, took off his cloak and wrapped it around me, covering up that glaring wedding dress. "Yao Guang, let's go home." I nodded and followed him outside. As I passed by Xiao Jinyan, I stopped and turned my head to look at him. He clenched his fists. His eyes were bloodshot, staring deadly at me. "Lin Yaoguang, you'll regret this." I smiled. "You are the one who is going to regret it." After saying that, I stepped out of the main gate of Marquis Genin's mansion without looking back. From that day on, I had no more ties to this place. The general's mansion was brightly lit. My father, Lin Zhenbei, sat in the main seat in his everyday clothes, his face as still as water. He wasn't wearing. I told the whole story from beginning to end, without embellishment, and without the slightest emotional fluctuation. After I finished speaking, the hall was dead silent. Big brother Lin Yuanfeng was already so angry he slammed a fist on the table and roared, "This is going too far, father. I'll go to court tomorrow and report him, and ask His Majesty to seek justice for our Lin family." Father didn't speak, just looked at me, his deep eyes showing no sign of happiness or anger. "Yao Guang, he began slowly, his voice deep. What do you want to do? He was asking me. He knew that, since I dared to bring up divorce on the spot, it was definitely not out of a momentary impulse. I met his gaze and said calm, Father, just impeaching him is letting him off too easily. Lin Yuanfeng was taken aback. This is still letting him off easy. Scorning imperial grace, defiling our family's honor, that is enough to have his title stripped and him dismissed from office. Big brother. I shook my head. Stripping him of his title and dismissing him from office only punishes him personally. The foundation of his Marquis Zhenen's residence is still intact. A century-old noble family will always have a day to make a comeback. Besides, this matter is ultimately a scandal of the inner quarters, and our political enemies will say our Lin family is making a mountain out of a molehill, using our power to oppress others. A hint of approval flashed in Father's eyes. Then what do you think should be done? I took a deep breath and laid out the plan I had long since thought of. Father, at the morning court session tomorrow, you must not impeach Xiao Jinyan. I looked at Father and said, word by word, what you must do is hold the death exemption decree bestowed by the late emperor and offer your resignation to His Majesty. What? Lin Yuanfeng shot up in shock. Resign, little sister. Are you insane? For a mere Xiao Jinyan, is it worth it for Father to resign from his position as general? Big brother, calm down. I motioned for him to sit down. Of course, Father isn't actually going to resign. I looked at Father and continued to explain my plan. You must plead guilty before His Majesty. The crime being your failure to discipline your daughter properly. You will just say, your subject has failed to discipline his daughter, causing her to suffer such a great humiliation on her wedding day. Her husband's family treats the imperial marriage as child's play, and your subject is ashamed before His Majesty's grace, ashamed before the trust of the late emperor, and feel I no longer have the face to stand in the imperial court, undeservedly holding a high position. This move is to place our Lin family in the position of both a victim and a penitent. Father's eyes grew brighter and brighter. He had completely understood my intention. I continued. In this way, this matter will no longer be a private grudge between the Lin family and the Marquise's residence, but will become a major affair of state concerning whether the hearts of meritorious subjects are chilled, and the preservation of the royal family's dignity. Xiao Jinyan's actions will no longer be a simple matter of flawed virtue, but will become slapping the royal family's face and chilling the hearts of meritorious subjects. At that time in the imperial court, there will inevitably be people who speak up for Xiao Jinyan, accusing you, Father, of making a big fuss over nothing, or even of blackmailing the sovereign, and this is precisely what we need. I stood up and walked to the center of the main hall as if I were already standing in tomorrow's imperial court. The more they say this is a small matter, the more it will highlight Xiao Jinyan's insolence and his contempt for imperial grace. The more they impeach you, the more it will stir up the sympathy and anger of the generals in the army and the loyal and upright officials. When the time comes, you won't need to say much, just leave the opportunity to rebut to those who truly understand. In the end, whether His Majesty does it to appease you, a general who holds military power, or to uphold his own supreme royal face, he must punish Xiao Jinyan severely. This punishment will no longer be a simple stripping of title and dismissal from office, but a conviction by imperial decree from the emperor himself, nailing the Marquis Zhenen's residence to the pillar of shame, with no possibility of recovery. After I finished speaking, the entire hall was dead silent. My big brother, Lin Yuanfeng, stared at me, dumbfounded, as if he were meeting me, his little sister. For the first time after a long while, Father Lin Zhenbei slowly stood up, walked over to me and patted my shoulder. The previous gloom was gone from his face, replaced by a complex and gratified smile. Good, as expected of my Lin Zhenbei's daughter, will do as you say. A golden light flashed in his eyes, and that murderous aura that only appears on the battlefield flashed and vanished. I'd like to see who in the imperial court tomorrow dares to say the grievance my Lin family's daughter has suffered is a trivial matter. The next day, Daxing Hall. All the officials stood solemnly, the morning light shining through the carved window lattices onto the magnificent golden dragon throne. Emperor Zhao Xuan sat upright upon it, his expression majestic. Marquis Zhenan Xiao Jinyan was also among them. He had changed into a brand new court robe, but the dark circles under his eyes and his haggard expression could not be concealed. He hadn't slept all night, and his heart was filled with anxiety. He had already prepared his excuse. As long as General Lin Zhenbei impeached him in court, he would immediately kneel and beg for forgiveness, blame everything on a drunken mistake, and then ask a few colleagues to help plead his case. He figured at most it would just be a fine on his salary and house arrest, and the matter could surely be suppressed. After all, to punish a marquis with a hereditary title of perpetual succession over such a trivial domestic affair was truly unreasonable. He secretly glanced at Lin Zhenbei, who stood at the head of the military officials. Lin Zhenbei was expressionless, as if everything from last night had never happened. Xiao Jinyan felt a bit more at ease. It seemed Lin Zhenbei was still mindful of the bigger picture. The morning court session proceeded routinely. After discussing a few important matters concerning the borderlands, it looked like the court was about to be dismissed. Xiao Jinyan's heart was completely put at ease. However, just at the moment the chief eunuch was about to announce the dismissal of the court, Lin Zhenbei made his move. He held a red sandalwood box, slowly stepped out from the ranks, walked to the center of the grand hall, and knelt down with a thud. The entire court of civil and military officials was instantly in an uproar. General Zhenbei, Lin Zhenbei, commanded the Great Zhou's 300,000 troops, had fought alongside the late emperor, and was bestowed with the cinnabar scroll and iron certificate, which granted him immunity from one death penalty and the privilege of not kneeling before the emperor. Among all the civil and military officials in this court, who hadn't received his favor, who didn't fear his authority, he actually knelt. Xiao Jinyan's heart felt as if it were fiercely gripped by a large, invisible hand, instantly leaping into his throat. Emperor Zhao Xuan was also startled and hurriedly said, "Beloved minister, what is the meaning of this? Quickly, please rise." But Lin Zhenbei kowtowed on the ground, his voice booming like a great bell. "Your Majesty, this subject is guilty." He raised the red sandalwood box high in his hands and opened it. Inside lay an iron certificate with a red gold border, the cinnabar scroll and iron certificate. All the civil and military officials of the court gasped. This item had never been revealed in public since it was bestowed by the late emperor. For what reason did Lin Zhenbei bring it to the court today? Your Majesty. Lin Zhenbei's voice carried a hint of desolation and sorrow. I, your humble servant, General Zhenbei, Lin Zhenbei, have failed in raising my daughter, bringing misfortune upon my family, causing her to suffer a great humiliation on her wedding night. Her husband's family has disregarded the immense grace of the imperial marriage bestowed by your Majesty, and treated the honor of the imperial family like a child's game. I am ashamed to face your Majesty. Ashamed to face the trust of the late emperor. I feel that I am lacking in virtue and integrity, and no longer have the face to stand in this court, let alone the face to command the 3 armies. I implore your Majesty to take back this cinnabar inscribed iron plaque, and permit this old servant to retire and return to my hometown. Boom, these words were like a sudden clap of thunder, exploding in everyone's ears. With a swoosh, all eyes focused on Xiao Jinyan. Xiao Jinyan's mind was a complete blank, his whole body ice cold. He had calculated and calculated, but he never calculated that Lin Zhenbei would pull a stunt like this, not impeaching, not accusing, but instead directly resigning, using his own glorious merits and his general's position as a gamble. This move was too ruthless. Emperor Zhao Xuan's face instantly darkened. He stared at Xiao Jinyan, his gaze as sharp as a blade. Marquise Genin, is what General Zhenbei said true? Xiao Jinyan's legs went soft, and he also knelt down, cold sweat dripping from his forehead. Your Majesty, I am guilty. I drank a few cups too many last night and misbehaved after getting drunk. That is why I committed such a foolish act. I did not intend to slight the general's daughter, and had even less intention of offending the imperial might. He was still trying to use his drunkenness to muddle through. Just then, a voice rang out. The left censor-in-chief of the censorate, Fang Cheng, stepped out from the ranks and reported, Your Majesty, this subject has a memorial to present. Fang Cheng had always had political disagreements with Lin Zhenbei, was a famous remonstrance official of the Qingliu faction at court, and was also a distant maternal cousin of Xiao Jinyan's mother. He stepped forward, obviously, to come to Xiao Jinyan's rescue. Your Majesty, although Marquis Zhenin has had a moral failing, at its root, it was sexual misconduct while drunk, a private family matter. General Zhenbei is a pillar of the state. How can he so lightly speak of resigning over such a trivial matter? In this subject's opinion, the general's action is truly making a mountain out of a molehill, and there is the suspicion that he is using this opportunity to pressure Your Majesty and blackmail the sovereign. As soon as these words were spoken, a chorus of agreement immediately rang out in the imperial court, mostly from the civil officials who were on good terms with the Marquis of Zhenin's estate, or those who usually couldn't stand Lin Zhenbei's immense power. What Censor Fang says is absolutely right. How can household affairs be compared to matters of the state? The general's contributions are great and hard-won, but he can't be arrogant on account of his achievements. Hearing these voices of support, a sliver of hope instantly rose in Xiao Jinyan's heart. Yes, that is right. Characterize the matter as a minor family affair, and Lin Zhenbei's actions as using his achievements to coerce. This way, His Majesty, in order to maintain the balance of the court, won't be excessively harsh on him. However, they all underestimated the cunning of this old fox, Lin Zhenbei, and also underestimated the heart-piercing speech I had prepared for him. Facing Fang Cheng's impeachment, Lin Zhenbei remained kneeling on the ground, not even lifting his head, and just let out a desolate laugh. A trivial matter of the back household. He slowly raised his head, a faint glint of tears shining in his cloudy old eyes. Censor Fang, my lords, this old man would actually like to ask a thing or two. He looked around at everyone. His voice wasn't loud, but it clearly carried throughout the entire grand hall. Here in this imperial court, I am sure there are many colleagues who know a thing or two about medicine. This old man dares to ask, if a man is truly so drunk as to be unconscious, dead drunk, can he still have the ability to perform intercourse? With this question, the imperial court instantly fell silent. Lin Zhenbei's question was like a needle, precisely piercing through Xiao Jinyan's most hypocritical excuse. A few officials from the Imperial Medical Bureau who were knowledgeable in medicine subconsciously nodded, then immediately realized their gaffe and hurriedly lowered their heads. The answer was self-evident. Alcohol can add to the fun, and it can also ruin it. A light drink is pleasant, while heavy drinking harms the body. If one were truly drunk to the point of not being able to tell who is who, then their body would have long since stopped listening to commands. Lin Zhenbei saw this, sneered, his voice suddenly rising. If he can have intercourse, it proves his mind is still somewhat clear, and he is by no means truly drunk. Since he isn't truly drunk, yet he doesn't enter the bridal chamber, and instead fornicates with a household concubine. Is this being muddled? He suddenly turned to Xiao Jinyan, his gaze like lightning. No, this is not being muddled. This is indulging in pleasure while clear-headed. It is a deliberate humiliation. Marquis Zhenin, you dare say it is not. Xiao Jinyan's face turned pale from his questioning, his lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. What could he say? That he had a special gift, and could still perform even when dead drunk. Wouldn't that just further confirm that he was dissolute and unrestrained? Fang Cheng's expression changed, and he immediately retorted. You are wrong, General. Everyone's tolerance for alcohol is different. How can you generalize? Perhaps the Marquis was just emboldened by the wine. It wasn't on purpose. What a not on purpose! Lin Zhenbei seemed as if he was waiting for this very sentence. He turned around, faced the emperor on the dragon throne, and kowtowed again. Your Majesty, this old subject asks again, where did this marriage come from? Emperor Zhao Xuan said in a deep voice. It was granted by our own mouth. That is right. Lin Zhenbei's voice suddenly became impassioned. It was personally bestowed by His Majesty. It is a heavenly grace. This is not just about the marriage between my little daughter Yao Guang and Marquis Zhenin. It is also the imperial family's consideration for a meritorious official. It is the grace of a sovereign to his subject. But Marquis Zhenin, how did he repay this heavenly grace? On his wedding night before the dragon and phoenix candles, He ignored the principal wife personally bestowed by His Majesty and did lewd things with a lowly concubine in the west courtyard. Imperial Censor Fang, you tell this old official, is this a small matter? Lin Zhenbei's voice resounded in the great hall, deafeningly loud. This is not a family matter. This is a matter of state. He is not slapping my face, Lin Zhenbei's face, nor my daughter's face. He is slapping your Majesty's face, the face of the entire Great Zhou imperial family. He is telling all the civil and military officials of the court, telling all the people under heaven, that the grace bestowed by the emperor is worthless in his. Marquis Zhen Xiaojinyan's eyes, not even comparable to a lowly concubine. Is this the way of a subject? This is contempt for imperial grace. This is deceiving the monarch and defying authority. And just like that, the grave accusation of deceiving the monarch and defying authority was firmly placed upon Xiaojinyan's head. Fang Cheng's face went pale. Xiaojinyan's face turned ashen, and the emperor on the dragon throne, Zhao Xuan. His face had already turned completely black. In the imperial court you could hear a pin drop. Everyone was stunned by this damning argument from Lin Zhenbei. He had cleverly escalated the moral failings of the inner residents into disloyalty in the court, transforming the humiliation of a wife into contempt for imperial power. This completely changed the nature of the matter. Fang Cheng still tried to struggle. General, you speak too gravely? Marquise Zhenan had absolutely no such intention. Enough. Lin Zhenbei abruptly interrupted him. This time his voice was filled with exhaustion and sorrow, as if he had aged 10 years in an instant. He didn't look at anyone else, just slowly said to the cold golden bricked floor, Your Majesty, my fellow colleagues, this old subject has spent a lifetime on the battlefield, guarding the northern frontier for 20 years. I have 73 scars, big and small, on my body, and the most severe one left me just a step away from death's door. Why did this old subject fight so desperately? It was for the peace and prosperity of this great Zhou, for the myriad lights of the homes behind me, and for the safety of my wife and daughters. His voice was not loud, but it carried a force that struck straight into people's hearts. In the ranks of the military officials, the eyes of several old generals who had once followed him onto the battlefield all reddened. My daughter of the Lin family has been well-read and sensible, gentle and virtuous since childhood, and she is the apple of my, Lin Zhenbei's eye. This old official has been away on military campaigns, unable to always be by her side, and my heart is already filled with immense guilt. This old official believes that finding a good marriage for her, letting her have a good husband to accompany her and live in blissful harmony for the rest of her life, will be able to make up for it a little. By your Majesty's immense grace, a marriage was bestowed upon her and the Marquis of Zhenan. This old subject was grateful to the point of tears, and my humble daughter was overjoyed, marrying into the Marquise's manor with our Lin family's century of good reputation and all her hopes for the future. But what was the result? He smiled sadly. The result was that on her wedding night, she was left to guard an empty room, suffering all kinds of humiliation. Censor Fang, you keep saying it is a small matter. Then this old subject dares to ask, if this had happened to your daughter, would you still think it is a small matter? Fang Cheng was questioned into speechlessness. His face flushed red. Lin Zhenbei did not stop. His gaze swept across the entire ranks of military officials, his voice growing heavier. Today, it is my, Lin Zhenbei's daughter, who was humiliated. If this matter is just lightly dismissed as a trivial domestic affair, then whose daughter will it be tomorrow? Hundreds of thousands of soldiers of our great Zhou are fighting bloody battles at the border, protecting their homes and defending the nation. They leave their wives, children, and elders in their homeland, their only thought in their hearts being the peace of their homes. But if they were to learn that the legitimate daughter of a meritorious official of the court could be bullied at will on her wedding night, that even a marriage bestowed by the imperial family could be trampled upon like this, what would they think? Wouldn't they worry that while they are abroad risking life and limb, their wives and daughters at home might be abused and scorned? If the army's morale is shaken because of this, if the foundation of the nation is destabilized because of this, Censor Fang, is this a responsibility you can bear? This series of questions, like a heavy hammer, struck everyone's heart one blow after another. He was no longer just seeking justice for his own daughter. He was seeking justice for all the soldiers under heaven, and demanding an accounting for the very foundation of the nation. After speaking, Lin Zhenbei said no more, but only knocked his head heavily upon the ground. Your Majesty, this old subject cannot bear for my daughter, in the prime of her youth, to henceforth spend her entire life exhausting her spirit, entangled in internal strife with a man of crooked heart and a shameless concubine. This old subject has spent a lifetime in the military, protecting the peace and prosperity of the nation. Yet I cannot even protect my own daughter completely. This is this subject's greatest pain. I implore your Majesty to permit this subject to remove his armor and return to his fields. The one word, pain, the one plea, were filled with endless desolation and resolve. The entire Daxing Hall deathly silent. Everyone knew that the Emperor had to make a choice. Insolent. A thunderous roar came from the dragon throne. Emperor Zhao Xuan fiercely slammed the dragon desk and shot to his feet. His chest heaved violently, his face was livid, and in his eyes was an irrepressible, monstrous rage. 3 parts of this anger were for the plight of the Lin family's father and daughter. 3 parts were fury at Xiao Jinyan for defying imperial grace. But most of it was the emperor's wariness of the court situation getting out of control and anger at his own authority being challenged. This move by Lin Zhenbei seemed like a feigned retreat to advance, but in reality it put him in check. If he doesn't severely punish Xiao Jinyan today, he will chill the hearts of all the military officials in the court and shake the very foundation of the army. If he handles it lightly, he, the emperor, will lose face, and the imperial family's prestige will be completely gone. So, he must be angry, and it must be a thunderous rage. What a Marquis of Jinan! What a Xiao Jinyan! Zhao Xuan pointed at Xiao Jinyan, who was kneeling on the ground, trembling like a sieve, and laughed out of extreme anger. The marriage I, Jen, personally bestowed, is not even as good as a number concubine in your eyes. You make the general's daughter guard an empty room alone. Where does that leave my face? Where does that leave the face of the royal family? You keep saying you messed up while drunk, but we see you as lust-crazed and audacious, arrogant and insubordinate. Xiao Jinyan was scared out of his wits, kowtowing non-stop. Your Majesty, spare me. Your Majesty, spare me. This subject will never dare again. This subject deserves to die 10,000 deaths. Deserve to die 10,000 deaths. You indeed deserve to die 10,000 deaths. The emperor's gaze turned to Fang Cheng, and those officials who had just agreed, his eyes bone-chillingly cold. And you, a trivial household matter, making a big deal out of nothing. In your eyes is the heart of a meritorious subject. A small matter. Is the imperial family's honor. A small matter. Is the army's morale, and the nation's foundation a small matter. I see you've all lived comfortable lives for too long. Forgotten who fought to conquer this land. Forgotten that the soldiers at the border are still shedding blood and sacrificing themselves. The officials who were called out turned ashen-faced, a whole group of them dropping to their knees. Fang Chung, in particular, was drenched in sweat, regretting his initial decision. He had only been thinking about suppressing Lin Zhenbei, but forgot that the essence of this matter was touching the reverse scale of imperial authority. After venting his anger, the emperor slowly sat down, his gaze falling on Lin Zhenbei, who was still prostrated on the ground, and his tone softened considerably. Beloved minister, quickly, please rise. It is I who misjudged character, wrongly trusted treacherous villains, and have wronged you and your daughter. He walked down the imperial steps and helped Lin Zhenbei up with his own hands. This is imperial statecraft, giving a slap and then a sweet date, which both clarifies one's stance and appeases a meritorious minister. Beloved minister, you are a pillar of the state. The great Zhou cannot do without you. Do not mention resigning again. Lin Zhenbei took the opportunity to get up, his face still showing a sorrowful expression, and said with cupped hands, "Thank you, your Majesty." He knew the act should end here. If he persisted any further, it would truly become coercing the sovereign. The emperor returned to the dragon throne, his expression once again becoming grim and terrifying. "Transmit our decree." The chief eunuch hastily bowed, holding a horsetail whisk, and responded in a shrill voice. This slave is here. Marquise Jenin Xiaojinyan is of corrupt character and has disgraced his family's honor. Slighted the daughter of a meritorious official on his wedding night, scorned the imperial favor, and deceived the emperor and defied his superiors. He is stripped of his title as Marquis Jenin, reduced to a commoner, and forbidden from holding an official post for life. All fiefdoms and stipends under his name are to be confiscated in their entirety. The Marquis Jenin manor is demoted to an earl's manor, to be inherited by his legitimate younger brother, Xiao Jinchuan, who is to reflect upon his faults behind closed doors for 1 year. This imperial decree was equivalent to directly and completely cutting off Xiao Jinyan's future. Xiao Jinyan collapsed on the ground, his face ashen, his eyes hollow. It is over. Everything is over. However, this wasn't over yet. The emperor's gaze seemed to pierce through the palace walls, landing on the rear courtyard of that marquise's mansion. As for that concubine Chun Dao who disgraced the family, a vicious glint flashed in his eyes. This kind of shameless person who brings disaster to the household. What is the use in keeping her? Order the Jingzhou prefecture to send people. Go immediately, stuff her into a pig cage, and drown her in a pond for public display, as a warning to others. Once the imperial edict is issued, the matter is settled. Xiao Jinyan had his official hat and peacock feather removed by the guards before the hall, was stripped of his marquise's court robes, and was dragged out of Daxing Hall like a dead dog. He didn't struggle, nor did he beg for mercy, just stared lifelessly at the resplendent golden ceiling of the hall, muttering to himself, "Regret. I regret it." Unfortunately, there is no medicine for regret in the world. Fang Cheng and the other officials who pleaded for him were ordered by the emperor to be fined a year's salary, and were confined to their homes to reflect. At the imperial court, the atmosphere turned solemn. Everyone understood a truth. You could offend anyone, but you must never provoke General Zhenbei, Lin Zhenbei, and even more so, don't provoke his daughter who seems weak, but is actually ruthless in her methods. The imperial edict quickly spread through every street and alley of the capital city. First, it reached the Marquise Jenin manor. No, it should be called the Earl's manor now. All the fiefs, farmlands, and stipends under Xiao Jinyan's name were completely confiscated. The once illustrious Marquise Jenin, in the blink of an eye, became the biggest joke in the capital. And another imperial edict concerning Xun Tao was directly delivered by the officers from the Jingzhou prefecture. The officers showed no courtesy at all, kicking open the guest room where Xun Tao was and directly dragging her out, while she was still having her beautiful dream of flying onto a high branch to become a phoenix. "What are you doing? Let go of me. I am the Marquise's person." Chun Tao was still screaming, still using her pathetic status to intimidate the crowd. The officer in the lead sneered and unrolled the bright yellow imperial edict. "By the grace of heaven, the emperor proclaims the concubine Chun Tao has defiled the family honor and is of corrupt character. She is to be immediately placed in a pig cage and drowned in a pond as a public example, to serve as a warning to others by imperial command." "Drown in the pond?" Chun Tao's scream turned into a terrified shriek. "No, impossible. The Marquis will save me. The Marquis will definitely save me." She struggled with all her might, but those few government bailiffs were all strong and burly men. There was no way a weak woman like her could break free. Her mouth was gagged with a ragged cloth. Her hands and feet were tied up, and she was roughly shoved into a filthy and stinky pig cage. The pig cage was lifted onto a horse-drawn carriage and pulled all the way towards the wild lake beside the mass grave outside the city. Countless commoners followed behind to watch the spectacle, pointing and gesturing at Chun Tao in the pig cage, their spittle flying. "That is the concubine who seduced the Marquise. So shameless. Making the young lady of the general's manor lose so much face. Serves her right. Drowning her in the pond is letting her off easy." Inside the pig cage, Chun Tao listened to these curses and looked at those contemptuous gazes. Her eyes filled with despair and fear. She didn't understand. How did things turn out like this? Wasn't it just sleeping with a man? Wasn't it just wanting to fight for favor and get a proper title? Why was the consequence being drowned in a pond? Not until the moment the pig cage was lifted high, about to be thrown into the icy lake water, did she see the indifferent faces of the commoners on the shore through the gaps. She suddenly understood. Her mistake wasn't wanting to climb up, but that she provoked the wrong people. She provoked the Genbei general's manor, which held great power, and was decisive and ruthless, and that Lin Yaoguang, who had never taken her seriously from the very beginning and only wanted to use her. This pawn to completely destroy a century-old noble family. Plop with a loud sound, the pig cage fell into the water, kicking up a huge splash soon. The surface of the water returned to calm, with only strings of bubbles rising up. A woman who vainly tried to get ahead using her body, just like that, disappeared from this world without a sound or a trace. Xiao Jinyan was kicked out of the Marquise's mansion. No, it should be called the Earl's mansion now. His younger brother, the newly appointed Genin Bo Xiao Jinchuan, looked at him, with not a trace of brotherly affection in his eyes, only bone-deep disgust and coldness. From today on, you are no longer a member of our Xiao family. Our Xiao family doesn't have a descendant like you who is stupid enough to ruin their own future. Get out. Xiao Jinyan, wearing a set of coarse linen clothes, was pushed out of the side door by the house servants, falling heavily to the ground. His former subordinates and friends now all make a detour when they see him, as if avoiding the plague. He was penniless, living on the streets. His former life of fine clothes, rich food, and a large entourage had all vanished like a puff of smoke. When he was hungry, he had to fight with beggars for food. When he was cold, he could only curl up in the corner of a ruined temple. In just a few short days, the once high-spirited Marquis of Genin had become a gaunt, filth-covered beggar. He started to regret. Waking from his dreams at midnight, he would always see Lin Yaoguang in a bright red wedding dress, looking at him coldly. Then let it be drowning in the pond. You are the one who will regret it. Yes, he regretted it. He really regretted it. He regretted why he had to go and provoke Chun Tao. He regretted why he treated Lin Yaoguang like those inner court women who could be easily manipulated. And he regretted even more why he was foolish enough to think that it was just a small matter. If he hadn't gone to Chun Tao's courtyard on the wedding night, if the next day he had sincerely knelt down and admitted his mistake, instead of just thinking of putting on an act to fool her. If, unfortunately, there are no ifs. On this day he was begging on the street and saw a magnificent carriage slowly pass by. The carriage's curtain was lifted by a corner by the wind, and he saw a familiar figure. It was Lin Yaoguang. She had already taken off her wedding dress and changed into a simple and elegant dress. Her face was without makeup, yet she was more radiant and charming than ever before. She was talking and laughing with a handsome young man, her eyes crinkling into crescents, with a gentleness and contentment he had never seen from her. That man was the currently most favored third prince, Zhao Jinglin. Xiao Jinyan's heart felt as if it were being brutally pierced by thousands of steel needles, hurting so much he couldn't breathe. That should have been his wife, that honor, that tenderness, that marriage envied by all the men in the capital. It all should have belonged to him. It was he who destroyed it with his own hands. He rushed forward like a madman, wanting to stop the carriage. Yaoguang, Yaoguang, it is me, I am Jinyan, he roared, his voice hoarse and unpleasant. Look at me. I regret it. I really regret it. Please forgive me. Okay, let's start over. However, before he could even get close, two tall guards blocked his way like iron towers. Get lost. Where did this mad beggar come from? A guard kicked him to the ground. Lin Yaoguang in the carriage seemed to hear the commotion, just glancing outside indifferently. That gaze was calm and indifferent, with no hate and no love, just like looking at a stranger who was completely unrelated to her. Then the carriage curtain fell. The carriage slowly drove away, without the slightest pause. Xiao Jinyan sprawled on the icy cold ground, watching the departing carriage, and finally couldn't help but let out a beast-like howl. He had truly gone mad, driven completely insane by endless remorse. After the separation, my life was more peaceful and comfortable than ever before. I was no longer the future mistress of the Marquis of Genin's residence. I went back to being the doted-upon legitimate daughter of the General of Genbei's residence, Lin Yaoguang. Father and big brother felt guilty towards me and doted on me even more. Mother held my hand and said with relief, Yaoguang, well done. A daughter of our Lin family will never suffer this kind of grievance. As for the gossip and rumors in the capital city, I ignored them all. Those noble ladies who once envied me for marrying into the Marquise's mansion now look at me with eyes full of pity and a hint of gloating. They don't understand. To me, escaping that quagmire that is Xiao Jinyan is not a tragedy, but a rebirth. I started helping my mother manage the household's daily affairs, keeping the vast general's mansion well organized. In my spare time, I'd read books, play the qin, or play chess with my father. After this incident at the imperial court, father's prestige grew even stronger. Those political enemies who once opposed him now all tucked their tails between their legs. As for the Xiao family, they fell into complete obscurity. Although the new Earl of Zhenan, Xiao Jinchuan, managed to keep his title, the family's prestige plummeted, and they could barely hold their heads up in the capital. As for Xiao Jinyan, I would occasionally hear news about him from the servants' idle chatter saying he'd gone mad. Completely mad, spouting nonsense on the streets all day. Saying he was a marquis, saying the general's daughter was his wife. Everyone treated him as a joke, I heard, and felt not a single ripple in my heart. That was his own choice, and also the end he deserved. On the other hand, the third prince, Zhao Jinglan, started to frequently visit our general's residence. He is my eldest brother's good friend, and used to come often, but recently the number of his visits has obviously increased. He would always bring some novel little trinkets. Mother saw this and was pleased in her heart. She asked me indirectly, "Yao Guang, what do you think of the third prince?" I just smiled and didn't say anything. After experiencing a failed marriage, I've become much more detached about matters of the heart. I no longer insist on finding a good man to be with. I only wish to live this life as I please, free and at peace. If a good match comes along, I will gladly accept it. If not, I can also be wonderful on my own. Lin Yaoguang's life will not be defined by any man. The early summer wind carried a hint of warmth as I stood on the viewing pavilion of the general's manor, overlooking the scenery of half the capital city. In the distance is the majestic imperial palace. Nearby are the bustling city streets, the whole scene of worldly life in full view. Father walked to my side and stood shoulder to shoulder with me. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "I was thinking in this world, you ultimately have to rely on yourself," I said softly. "Whether a woman or a man, whether in the inner quarters or the imperial court. If you don't want to be bullied, if you want to live with dignity, you must become powerful yourself. Have a powerful family background, a strong mind, and also powerful methods." Father smiled in satisfaction. "You've grown up, Yao Guang, even more outstanding than I imagined." He paused, then said, "The third prince is a decent kid, and he is sincere with you." "I know," I nodded. "But if you don't want to, Father won't force you," he added. "Lin Zhenbei's daughter has the right to choose the life she wants." My heart warmed, and I turned to look at Father. He already had some white hair at his temples, a mark left by his toil for the country. "Father," I looked at him seriously, "I understand. I won't let you and Mother down again. The road ahead is still long. Perhaps I will accept the third prince's affection, become his support, and exercise my talents and intelligence in another, more expansive world. Perhaps I'll choose to remain unmarried for life, stay in the general's mansion, ease the burdens for my father and elder brother, and become their most steadfast support. But no matter which choice I make, I will not regret it. Because my life is now firmly in my own hands." A burst of laughter came from downstairs. It was a few maids chasing each other and playing around. The sun is just right, and the breeze is gentle. I took a deep breath and felt that the gloom in my chest had long been swept away. The sea is wide for fish to leap, the sky is high for birds to fly. Xiao Jinyan and Chuntao are nothing but two small pebbles tripping me up on my life's path. Once they're kicked away, the road ahead is a smooth one. As for that crazy ex-husband, he has long been unworthy of being in my story. My new life is only just beginning the end.